and I am happy to be joined by some good friends. We've got Pastor Charlie Collins, Marilyn Searcy, and Pastor Bill Lawson. And these folks are here because they have been leading a small church and rural pastor roundtable today. It's something that they're all passionate about. But real quick, let's go around the table and just kind of share where you're at and where you're at in ministry.
Well, I'm Charlie Collins, as he said. I'm in Denton, North Carolina, a very rural setting. We are in the initiative. Not all rural churches are small, and not all small churches are rural. So
right.
We're dealing with both and the unique values. I've been born and raised in small towns and ministered in rural churches. So this really set off a fire in me. I said, I need to be a part of this.
Yeah. Marilyn, what about you?
I pastor at Mardella Springs Wesleyan Church in Mardella Springs, Maryland, a little tiny community, population 357.
Wow.
And a revitalization project there. I've been there for about 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah, Bill Lawson, pastor at Fillmore Wesleyan Church, and we're just up the road about 4 miles from Houghton College.
Okay.
And I've been there about 6.5 years. Saw some great things happening over the last couple of years. We're meeting in a local high school right now because we've seen some good things happen.
Awesome.
But being in a town of about 600, this whole thing really is passion in my heart too to see what God's going to do, because we know that there's so much going on in that rural grassland.
Right. So how did the three of you, because I know a couple of weeks ago we attempted to do a Skype call where we were just going to talk about what God was doing in this movement, but how did the three of you even get connected? Because we got North Carolina, we got Maryland, and we got New York.
Yeah.
So how did the three of you find each other?
Social media.
Yep.
I push the envelope sometimes and push against situations. I ask the question of our Wesleyan Pastors Forum about the feeling excluded sometimes, isolated sometimes from conferences that are geared more to
right.
A more urban or larger church setting, and how people dealt with it. And later on in the week, I got a connection with Marilyn, and we started talking, and it said, well, Bill is in on it, and it just kind of evolved into a few chats back and forth, a couple of Skype calls, Google meeting calls.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And this is just happening like the last 2 months. You guys have a booth here in the exhibit hall that we went by yesterday during our tour. Marilyn, when you saw this conversation happening, what was your initial reaction to, to see people are talking about small and rural churches, the fact that sometimes we do get overlooked? But how did it make you feel to see that conversation starting to take shape?
It struck a huge chord in my heart, resonated so deeply with me. I thought, wow, now there's some people speaking my language. There's some people who know where I am and know what is on my heart. And so that brought instant connection
right.
with people who understand what it is to pastor in a small church and or in a rural church.
Right.
And I had been having conversations with other people, other pastors, other church leaders, and also been doing some reading. And so it was so timely and so on target and so it just opened the door for more conversation with other people.
What about you, Bill? How did it feel to see this conversation and to kind of jump right into it?
Well, I think that's it. We jumped right into it. When Charlie posted what he posted, and Marilyn had some things to say, and there just was this almost a groundswell of people just saying, I would like to know more about how I can connect or network with other people who think and talk and act like I do.
Right.
And we love, what's happening in so many other areas, in the bigger urban centers, and some of the suburban areas are really growing, and there's a lot of people, they need Christ, they need that. But to have somebody who talks the same language that I do, that understands the needs that I have as a pastor in a small community, in a small town, really was something that I didn't know was such a resonating factor. And when we started talking about it and then having so many other people join the conversation, it just opened my heart and mind to thinking we need to be more connected in some way and network in a way that we can, hold each other accountable, but also support each other. And that's the one thing I found, especially in our two partners here, putting this whole thing together. So it's been an exciting time trying to figure it all out and see what we're going to do and how we're going to respond from here.
Bill, I'm not familiar with how big the population is where you pastor, but I dare say you could add up the total of our 4 communities, and it would be less than the number of people at this conference.
Oh yeah, by large.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, when they gave the numbers for theirs, I guess I'm the big city guy here. Right. We have 1,400 people in our community, so we're the big city of the table.
My goodness.
And it's different. And one of the things that sparked mine, Heath, was I was talking to a guy who pastors in Charlotte. Yeah. And he's not a Wesleyan, but he's pastoring in Charlotte. And we were talking about how he connected. And he had just he loved to take his office to the Starbucks and set up in the Wi-Fi. And he said, you should try that sometime. And I said, I will, as soon as Rick's gets Wi-Fi, because we don't have a Starbucks. And we don't have Wi-Fi other than we have Wi-Fi in our church. Right. But there's not many places in our community to do that.
That's
and
right.
It's just a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Marilyn, when we were doing the Skype call, you were talking about how in your small community there's not a lot of pastors, not a lot of churches, and just the doors of ministry that's open for you to minister to people that don't even go to your church, funerals and counseling and things like that. There's some, I think it was Mark Wilson from Hayward one time just wrote The Joys of Being, I think a country parson.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people that think of that and they're like, well, that'd be the worst thing ever. But there really is some joyous labor that comes out of that.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've been able to do is connect with the local public school.
Right.
And the doors just opened beyond my expectation with that. And it's kind of funny because I'm kind of known as the school pastor by the students and by the staff. And so when there's a need or when there's something to celebrate, we are true partners with that school, and it's been a privilege and an honor to be able to serve them. And so I never expected the doors to open that way at the school, and so it was totally a God thing.
Yeah. So today there was the round table. So talk a little bit about that. What was the feel like? How many people were there? What did you guys talk about? Was it something where some ideas were presented, or was it really just kind of going around and encouraging people and kind of letting them know where we were going?
Well, we wanted to have a place, a space, an opportunity to just begin some conversation. Just how, as we began conversation on, sometimes it feels like they're inadequate, and wouldn't it be great to come together and celebrate the unique strengths of small and rural churches? And so that's how the idea got started. And so, Bill, maybe you want to share a little bit of what happened today at the round table.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's about a little over 40 people there, and almost all of us were pastors or at least connected to the ministry in some way through a local church. And one of the things that we wanted to do was give them an opportunity to kind of be loved on, to be encouraged, to be recognized as being people who are on the front line doing the work, and maybe they're not posting big numbers on an annual service report, but they're doing the work of the ministry just the same.
Absolutely.
There's people in the hinterlands and the grasslands that still need Jesus. And so being able to give the pastors an attaboy, an attagirl, keep at it, God's given you this, you've been called, you can go, you can do this, because God doesn't make mistakes in placing people in churches. So that was really encouraging to have the three of us and our friend Megan be able to share some of the things that we feel are important, that they are dealing with, that we're dealing with, and then we gave them an opportunity to just talk. And I think one of the things that really was encouraging to me is there was never a silent moment around any table.
Wow.
They were talking and praying together at the end, and it just felt like there was already a networking of spirit right there in that moment. And it really gives me, kind of chill bumps to think about it now, the way that just in such a short amount, 2 hours or just a little over, people made deep connections because of what we do together and how we work together. So I found it to be very encouraging, enlightening. There were some great comments with people, things that they had talked about that were like, ooh, I want to try that at my church. So that networking instantly started to take effect.
Yeah. Now, you guys, one of the things you're hoping to do is, this is just a start. Like, this round table today was not, okay, we did the round table. Right. That's it. Great job, everybody. Mm-hmm. But this is just the start. You talked about networks. You guys are wanting to start networks where pastors can come together and get resourced. I know we're at the ground level, so this is exciting. It's exciting to me that I think, small church pastors, we know we're not the only ones,
right?
But we feel like the only ones. Right. And so when you get us in your room and you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Yeah. There are other people who understand what this is like. So what's your vision? And if somebody's watching now, how could they get plugged into one of these networks? What do you hope comes from those?
Go ahead.
Hey, listen, the dream, right, is to have that connectedness be realized and then acted upon. I think sometimes we get so isolated that we forget that there are a lot of other isolated pastors that I could connect with. We have opportunity now with technology that my personal desire is that we could see pastors in each district and in the old school, right, even some of the zones of the district, create network, even if they're not. We spoke with a pastor from Montana who pastors 2 churches that are 120 miles apart.
Wow.
Right? And then he's another 100 miles from the next guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's going to be hard for him to have a cup of coffee each week with this guy, but if they could connect online or they could make a phone call, just to share encouragement and ideas and resources, keep each other fresh. Another ultimate is through the Facebook page that they'll be hearing more about in a little bit, being able to network, drop questions, vent frustrations, scream a little bit to say, here I am, to have that network. And then Maryland is working on a conference for small and rural churches and small and rural church pastors to actually get together and learn and put some systems in place to create church health. Because the things that drive, right, and is to realize that small churches, small doesn't equate unhealthy.
Right.
And rural does not equate irrelevant.
Right.
But how do we get our minds wrapped around that so we can start moving towards healthy and relevant? It's hard to do in isolation. So I think Maryland has a great lead towards the conference that we're working towards.
So, talk a little bit about the conference coming up in Maryland.
So that is at our Denton camp in Denton, Maryland, September 28th to the 30th. And we are really excited that the speaker that's going to come share with us is the author of, his name's Carl Vaders, is the author of The Grasshopper Myth, which is a great book that was inspired me. When I opened up this book and I read this pastor's heart, I thought, man, I could have written this book. It has everything in it that I would like to say. And then other pastors that I know have read this, same thing. It just strikes such a chord. And so I thought, man, I want to network with him, and he's coming to do the conference with us.
Wow.
And so we're really excited about that. More information is going to be coming out on our Facebook page as all of this is so impromptu. Awesome. It's truly a groundswell, and so we feel like we're just really throwing things together.
Hey, this feels like such a Wesleyan thing because it's like, well, somebody ought to do something about that. Well, all right, we're going to do it. Like, I love that it is this grassroots movement. It's not headquarters didn't say, "Oh, we're going to do." It's like you guys caught the attention of headquarters, and they have put some resources in. They've got a booth. They've got these brochures. I believe every person today at the round table got a copy of the book.
And if they come by the booth, they have an opportunity to pick up a copy of the book.
So if you're watching this, you need to listen. This when we had our Skype call, I'd heard about the book, but I hadn't taken the step of buying it. Bought it, started reading it, and you're right, Marilyn. Just a powerful book. And I think as small church pastors, no one beats up on us more than ourselves.
That's right.
So we talked about the network. We talked about the conference. The Facebook page is Small, Rural, and Wesleyan. You just type that out in your search bar, and you'll find it. I'm there right now. Nothing more rural than a church surrounded by hay bales.
Amen.
Listen, if that's you, you might be a Wesleyan. I mean, that is my church right there. These are when I preach. If they open up the back doors, I got 12 cows, and sometimes
do you count?
I count them.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
When we say small, rural, and Wesleyan, we do mean small anywhere.
That's right.
They could be small in an urban setting.
Yeah,
that's right.
They could be rural but of a significant size, or they might be both small and rural. The commonality between them is that being a small church or being in a rural place sometimes feels like you are ministering in obscurity.
Right.
So the common thread with that is that pastors or churches who feel insignificant because of size or place, that's the thing that kind of unites us together. So it might be a person who's pastoring an urban church,
right,
but very small.
Yeah.
They may feel that they're hidden in the landscape of a metroplex.
Right.
The author Carl Vaders, he has a church of about 200 or more, but he's in Southern California surrounded by mega churches.
Right.
So he feels insignificant, or he did feel insignificant until he had a change in mindset. And when you ask the question, what do we hope to get out of this?
Yeah.
We want to change the language.
Right.
So that small doesn't equal insignificant.
Or unhealthy.
We want to change the mindset of pastors who feel like they're a failure because they haven't arrived by someone else's standard, and we want churches of all sizes to know that they matter in the body of Christ wherever they are, and to celebrate their unique ministry right where they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'd like to add to that
place of value.
Yeah.
Adding value to pastors. I have learned so much from pastors of small churches who have had to do everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Who have, if you have a question, they have an answer.
Yeah.
But they get overlooked in the conversations at district levels or general levels.
Yeah.
And if one of the initiatives that we wanted to send away from our roundtable was make contact with your district, to your district superintendent. Let them know about your victories.
Yeah.
Let them know about what you're celebrating. Right. It may not be the percentage gain, and you may not get the award at conference, but you can have the opportunity to celebrate and let your voice be heard.
Yeah.
And that is our initiative. We need to initiate that.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Bill?
I was just going to kind of add to what they're saying, that 90% of all churches in the United States are under 200 people.
Right.
90%. And 60% of all churches in the United States are in rural settings.
Right.
So how is it that we all feel isolated and alone when we're the majority? I find that to be a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And so having the opportunity to network and being together and to celebrate all that stuff and stay connected and realize that small doesn't mean unhealthy, and large doesn't necessarily mean healthy.
Right.
But that we have this opportunity to say, we're here, we're staying, and we're not going anywhere. Unfortunately, that 90% isn't going to change. Well, I'm not going to say that. Fortunately, that 90% isn't going to change.
Right.
90% of us are still in churches at 200, and I think there's something we need to celebrate about that alone.
Yeah.
So that's all.
So we talked about the networks. We talked about the conference, Facebook. What other types of resources do you see kind of coming out of the pipe here down the line that you've already talked about? You know, providing this book. But what are some other resources you guys might be kind of putting out there?
Well, I tell you, just about anything on churchleaders.com. That's a great website. They have Kerry Nienhuis is on there. He does some great work. Ed Stetzer, of course, is on there. They're doing some great work right now in trying to determine what is the actual optimum size of a church.
Oh, wow.
And depending on what study you look at, there could be anywhere from 300 to 500 is like the largest churches are going to become if they start new, and that 300 is probably going to be the average within the next 25 years.
Right.
Which that's interesting because that means there's a polarization between churchgoers and non-churchgoers.
Wow.
So I think anything you can do in church leadership, getting away from healthy church leadership conferences, would be check out the websites, get out there and find out what people are saying about rural churches, what they're saying about healthy churches, and how that's all changing. And I think ChristianLeaders.com is a great place to start.
Yeah. Well, besides Small, Rural, and Wesleyan on Facebook, where can people go? Maybe somebody is watching this right now, and it's just speaking to them. Where can they go to connect with you guys online? Charlie?
Well, they can find me on Twitter, DWestPastor at Twitter. They can email cecollins.pastor@gmail.com, and pick up the phone and give me a call. There's only one of me in Denton, North Carolina. Directory assistants will connect you.
And Facebook is, we've all connected
Easy,
on there.
yeah.
Marilyn, what about you?
Facebook, Twitter, email. They can stop by our booth and grab up one of these cards that has some of our values.
Right.
And on the back has all of our email addresses and how they can connect to continue the conversation with us.
What about you, Bill? You on?
Same idea. Just meet me at KidLawson, KIDDLLAWSON at Gmail. We would love to talk to you. Stop by the Facebook page.
Like I said, I'm so excited for what you guys are doing. Thank you for being obedient to the call of the Lord, because, like I said, sometimes we just kind of sit around and, man, if only someone, and you guys are the someone. So, like I said, Small, Rural, and Wesleyan on Facebook. Hey, we want to keep seeing your pictures. Some of you watching the live stream at home tonight, we want to see those pictures.
Amen.
Using the hashtag #MadeNew. And tonight, in just a few minutes, they're getting ready to start a service. It's put on by the Church Multiplication and Discipleship team from headquarters. I'm very excited about it. We've talked about small and rural churches, and tonight we're going to hear about church plant. We got to do it all.
Yeah.
We got to go to other countries. We've got to meet the health, and we got to do it all. And so it's exciting to hear this broad vision from our church. And then our post show tonight, we're going to be joined by a lot of guests: Dr. Jim Dunn, Corey Doran, who's planting a church in Portland, Brendan and Jen Peterson, who are planting a church in New York City, Jeremy Summers from headquarters. All these people are going to be in the service tonight, so you're going to hear part of their story. But then you got to join us for the post show. Don't watch the NBA Finals yet. This is where the real action is. Once again, thanks to my guests, Charlie, Marilyn, and Bill. Thank you so much for your commitment to the Lord. And we're getting ready to go live here at General Conference. So for the rest of the team, I'm Heath Mulliken, and we'll see you after the service.